Welcome back, everyone, to episode 134 of the Guardian Project podcast. I'm your host, Andy, and after tracking my Commander games this past year, I've learned one thing. I am the finale of Promise.
The finale of does that mean you end all of the games? Is that what you're saying?
I help end games.
Okay.
I mean, at some point, someone's got to end the game, and I feel like I do it a lot. So,
and you promise to do it. You're the.
I
you might even be
I
the.
will end the game.
You might even be the promise to end. Who knows?
I'm not the finale of glory, though, because sometimes people aren't thrilled with how I won the game.
Very inglorious. And
I couldn't.
I'm your other host, Mike. And did you know that most planeswalkers keep a to-do list or maybe even a to-kill list sometimes? It's true. In fact, Akiri still doesn't have Edgar marked off her list.
Nope.
You're welcome.
Please listen carefully.
And this is the podcast where we talk about all things Magic the Gathering.
But mostly Commander.
So we have a couple of announcements this week. The first one is, if you did not hear last week, our merch store is now live. So you can head over to guardianprojectpodcast.com and you can pick one up. They are $30 and they're free shipping to anywhere. So we've already gotten a few orders. We had some people locally want to pick some up. So again, the supplies aren't they're not crazy limited. I'm not saying you need to go right now, but they're not forever.
Well,
endless.
Everyone might be waiting to see if they win a free one through our giveaway.
That is the giveaway we are selecting tomorrow. Nope. We're selecting it on Wednesday. The day this episode comes out, we are selecting.
Yeah, that's right.
So if you're listening, you probably either got into it or you missed it. But hopefully you're following us on Twitter, because we are giving one away, and we're probably going to give one away again.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are actually starting our stream back up in the new year. So if you go on over to Twitch and go to twitch.tv/Guardian Project Podcast and follow, that is the main thing you got to do in order to be part of this giveaway that is currently happening or already happened by now. So hopefully you did so. And if not, please still go over there to twitch.tv/Guardian Project Podcast and follow so that you know when we go live. We're going to be streaming live games of Commander every other week starting on January 11th.
Yeah, so we used to stream on Thursdays. We're going to be switching to Tuesdays because, not 2 years ago. It's been almost a year, though. I mean, we stopped streaming in April of 2021. So it's been a while. We are excited to start this back up. But we used to stream on Thursdays, but now it's Tuesdays. So we're aiming for every other Tuesday. Maybe even more. Maybe it'll be less, But for now, that's what we're aiming at. So please go follow, because we can't add our custom emotes or reward options or anything until we've become an affiliate again. But we'll get there. We're very excited. The other announcement that I have is that I switched all my decks over to Moxfield this past 2 weeks while I was on vacation. So
very
Moxfield
nice.
is another deck tracking website. Wonderful program. It's got QR code capabilities. It shows you all the tokens that you need for your deck that are captured through Scryfall. It does have EDHREC integration. The one cool thing, though, and that I wanted to mention, is that it also has the ability to capture your window through OBS. So if someone uses OBS like we do when we stream, or anybody that uses a webcam when they want to show their, a face cam and capture their play area on Spell Table, they have updated it so that you are able to use that play tester to capture it into OBS, and it doesn't show all the cards while you're looking in your library or trying to scry one or something. So you can actually capture their playtest site right onto Spell Table and play with maybe if you didn't have a CEDH deck because it was really expensive, or you don't have the funds and you want to build a new deck, or you want to just try something out but you're not sure if you would like it, you can build a deck and play it with friends through Spell Table right through Moxfield, which is crazy, through OBS. So there's a few hoops to jump through, but it's pretty cool stuff. I got to see it happen live on stream this past week, actually.
Yeah, that even seems like a strict upgrade to MTGO Commander, quite honestly. You don't have to buy anything. I don't even know if there was any rewards anyways for playing Commander on MTGO. So yeah, maybe this is everyone's way of transitioning from MTGO to a free software that you can use.
Yeah, seems pretty cool. But we do want to thank everybody before we continue the episode. We want to thank all of our listeners and to everybody who supports us through Patreon. If you want to support us, you can head to patreon.com/guardianprojectpod and donate for any dollar amount. We really, really appreciate everything that you do for us.
And if you're looking for another way to support the podcast, whatever platform you're enjoying the podcast on now, if you could subscribe, rate, review, and leave comments, we'd be most appreciative. And of course, we already said it, but also head on over to twitch.tv/guardianprojectpodcast and follow us there.
Yes, you can also find us online at guardianprojectpodcast.com. Our social media is on Twitter at GuardianPod, Instagram, Guardian Project Podcast. We're on YouTube, Guardian Project Podcast. The gameplay videos are youtube.com/Guardian Project. And you can email us at guardianprojectpod@gmail.com. I said that really, really fast. I don't usually say it that fast. I messed it up. So YouTube is The Guardian Project. We should just change all of it. Let's make it consistent, because when we signed up for everything, some of the names were taken, but now I don't think they're taken anymore, and we can actually change everything over. Maybe we'll do that. We'll make it easy for everyone, including us, who it's definitely super easy for, and that's why we never mess up saying where anyone can find us. Coyle, what are we talking about this week?
Well, this is the first episode of the new year, so we need to look back at last year and talk about the stats of all of our Commander games that we track. So we track all of our games with various different categories, and we're going to look at statistics of a bunch of different one of those categories for all of the games that we played.
All right, I'm looking forward to that. It is time to crunch some numbers. The other thing that I do want to note, right, we want to note before we start this, is that everything that we talk about on the episode this week should really be taken with a grain of salt, right? These stats that we're talking about represent personal play groups, new decks that we built, testing with new cards, constant changes, because we're constantly tinkering with our decks, misplays. Some of our wins account for misplays,
sure.
Or I guess maybe don't account for them, but the win is still there. Takebacks and the like. So we are playing with friends. That's what's happening here. So misplays happen. People ask if they can take back plays. This is not strict.
Yeah, no tournament rules at our Commander tables.
Yeah, no. And so while we're going to be presenting a lot of information, this is not the end-all be-all of what really makes a Commander deck powerful. And since they're all built differently, they will all play out differently as we would expect. And the other thing to note is this is really just a sample of data. So while we track all of these things, they aren't tracked by everyone. But we really do this so that we can contextualize our games, and it really allows us to adjust our decks accordingly. And if you did not listen, the first time we did this was episode 82. So that was last year. And I was tracking my Commander games, and I played 366 games. And so we kind of broke that down. And then for 2021, we both started tracking all of our games.
Yep.
And that's what we're going to do here. We're going to break down just a lot of stuff. And I think we'll start with the first question here, which is how many games did we play? And was it more or less than what we thought we'd play? How many games did you play this year?
I played 143 games.
Okay.
Which accounts to about 11 games per month, or 2.75 games per week. I did want to put it into that context, because when I looked at 143 games, I thought, wow, this is like the least amount of Magic I've ever played in my whole life. But at the same time, like almost 3 games a week doesn't seem like a low amount of Magic for an average person.
That's still a lot of Magic.
Right. So yeah, that's, I guess, my opinion on the number of games. But Andy, I know that you blew me out of the water in this category. So how many games did you play?
I played 310 games this year.
Nice.
It was a lot more than I thought that I was going to play. And I will say that the reason I think it was going to be a lot less than what I actually did play is because when I did play 366 games in 2020, I vowed I would never do that again. And not in a negative way either. Just, it was a lot. At the end, it didn't feel fun, right? It felt like a chore.
Yeah.
It felt like if I don't play, 6 games this week, I'm going to fall behind, And this year, I didn't worry about that. I wasn't keeping track of the number of games like to make sure I was on track. I would occasionally look at it. So hitting 310, that's not that far behind. That's only 55 games behind what I did last year.
Right. Yeah.
So, or I guess 56 games.
Yeah. No, but that's not unreasonable.
Games. It's not unreasonable. I mean, I could have done it. But I think I played a lot more, and I'm happy with 310 for the year.
Oh, yeah.
It gives me a lot of information. And as we break the stats down, I did not expect to have played as much of specific decks. Some of them surprised me.
Okay.
So,
you had a lot of surprises, huh?
I had some surprises. I surprised myself. Now that we know what we've played, let's talk about our win percentage. So we've talked about this before, and we like to hover around 25% win rate, right? That feels right? 1 in 4 assuming you had the perfect deck power level, everything was matched up, you had a great rule 0. We would hope that everybody wins 25% of the time.
Yeah.
So what was your win percentage this past year?
Okay, so overall win percentage, because we broke it down a little bit as well, but overall win percentage, because a 25% win rate is specifically for 4-player pods, we want to say. But my overall win percentage was 19.58%, so under 20%, which is too low by about 5%. And I think I can safely say that there's not really too much of a margin of error with 143 games under the belt to say that a 5% difference is 7 or 8 more wins, losses turned into wins. So it's like a net of 16 wins almost. So definitely looking at just this percentage, I would say I definitely need to, play stronger decks or play differently or something like that. I need to be winning more often in the games that I'm playing based on this percentage and this percentage alone. Again, we're going to break it down a little bit more later and get into the specifics. But Andy, what about your win percentage?
Yeah, so when we talked about this last, my win percentage I thought was too high earlier in the year when we did take a peek at this, and I still think it's too high. So I did end with a 33% win rate, which is one in every 3 games, which is way too high. Now I do have a lot of information on where I think a lot of these wins came from, and specific decks that I had to tune down.
Sure.
That later in the year got less wins, but earlier in the year just had so many wins that I still think the deck could probably be tuned down even more. And we're going to talk about what we can do with these decks as well that are going to make them feel like they are more on par with what they were supposed to be. And I think that most of my Rule 0 discussions were successful.
Okay, that's good.
I will say that in some cases I did feel like I was shooting too high. Like I was, this was not the right deck to play here. But I also think that the nature of my favorite way to play the game, which is combo, kind of ends up leading to wins out of nowhere, which sometimes happens, not every time. But I know that this is too high. And I know you said you had a certain number of games you needed to win to get it to 25%. The other issue I was experiencing was that later on, it was hard to adjust and bring that win percentage down. But my win percentage later in the year was significantly lower than it was earlier. But it's much harder to lower a win percentage when you have like 210 games versus 30 games.
For sure.
So I will say that the win percentage was 4% lower in the second half of the year. So I ended up being around 29.
Okay.
So I wouldn't have been mad with 29. That's just over 1/4, it doesn't feel too mean.
Yeah.
I felt like reading this, I feel like the bad guy. And I don't think that I am. I think, and sometimes it just ends up being that I ended up winning the game. But again, we're going to talk about also things that we want to track in addition to what we tracked this year that I think will help also provide more context.
Yeah.
So next we want to talk about the top 10 commanders that we played this year, the number of times we played them, and perhaps we'll go into some win percentages for each of those. So walk us through your top 10 commanders of the year.
So my top commander for this year is actually kind of an interesting one. It's a deck that I redid halfway through the year, and that's my Morophon the Boundless deck. For the first 10 games of the year, it was actually a Changeling tribal deck, and the final 6 games of the year, it was a human tribal deck. But past that, I have my Sakashima of 1,000 Faces and Ikra Shidiki Partners deck with 11 games, Vega the Watcher at 10 games, and then a couple more partner commanders, Nadir and Sidar Kondo at 9 games, and Arden and Kodama at 9 games. So those are my top played. No surprises there. Those are a lot of my go-to, the partner decks and the Morophon deck. So no surprises there. What about yours?
So my top deck for the year was Niambi Esteemed Speaker at 26 games. I didn't expect that to be number one, but I guess it was number one earlier in the year, and I've really enjoyed it. So I guess, maybe I shouldn't have been so surprised. My second game, Malcolm, Keen-Eyed Navigator, Vile Smasher the Fierce. This is a deck that I put together so that I could play with friends when I was joining CEDH streams. I played that deck 22 times. And then I have Kaza Royal Chaser and Sigarda Heron's Grace, both at 17 games. Gerard Golgari Lichlord at 15 games. Finn the Fangbearer and Selvala Explorer Returned at 12 games. Rionia Fire Dancer and the Locust God at 11. And then Omnath Locust of Rage at 10 games. Those are my top 10 for this year.
Nice. Do you have commanders that you've only played like one time or something on your list?
I sure do.
Okay.
And most of them have a 0% win rate because I didn't win. So it just, it just didn't count them. But I will say, for the one deck that I feel we've learned is very strong. It's consistently strong, but I don't think it's oppressive, is Niambi Esteemed Speaker.
Yeah.
And I ended the year at a 27% win rate, which is like right where I kind of want that deck to be. One more loss probably would have lowered me to 26. I mean, I played the game 26 times, and I won 7 times. So I think this is like that perfect, that feeling of of what I want a deck to feel like.
Sure.
Every card is kind of a threat, but also it's not getting off the ground too fast, except for that one game where I got to reanimate Jin Gataxius on turn 3 and then copy it on turn 4. I'm sorry, everyone.
I mean, that's pretty nice.
Yeah, that did happen. So those were my top 10 decks, but we want to talk about win percentages that are based on the number of people in our pods. So whether you're playing in a 4-person, a 3-person, or a 5-person pod, which we do have this year.
Yep.
Because we played when we were in out of state in Wisconsin. So right. For 5-person pods, I only played 3 of them, and I did win 1 of them. So I had a 33% win rate with 5-person pods. How about you?
I only played in 2 of those pods where I got comboed out in both of them for a 0% win rate. But kind of expected. I don't expect to see those particular games winning by combat damage. The more people in there, the more life total you have to drain. So
yeah, the only one that I did win was with Gerard Golgari Lichlord, and I flung a Lord of Extinction.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that took everyone out. Now 4-person pods, I played 285 of them, and I won 93, so 33%.
Okay. I played 127. And I won 22 of them for a 17.3% win rate, which is even lower than my overall percent win rate, which is not great. So I really need to step up my game, apparently, in 4-player games. But that being said, 3-player games, I played 14 of those actually this year, and my win rate was 42.9%, so almost 50%. Obviously, when we're talking about 3-player games, we're not talking about a 25% win rate. We're talking about a 33% win rate. And having a sample size of only 14 games, if one of my games would have been a loss instead of a win, I would have been at, I believe, about 35% win rate. So very, very close, definitely within a margin of error there. What about your 3-player games? How many did you play?
I played 22 of them and I won 10 for 45% win rate.
Wow.
Now I do know that there are a few of them where I was playing Finn the Fangbearer, trying to win with Infect against 2 people is significantly easier to do than against 4 people. So I don't play Finn in 3-player games anymore. I had I had 4 3-player games with Finn this year. So I think that significantly helped Finn, but I've learned I don't want to do that anymore because the games are a little lopsided.
Yeah, well, they're fast, right? Maybe everyone's going to sit down with other fast decks. Maybe it would be okay or something. Who knows?
It's rough. It's rough when you're playing against 3 people and only one of them doesn't have a creature to block with, and then you take out the one person, and then Finn is significantly stronger in 1v1 than it is against 3.
Makes sense. And anything with,
we know why.
And anything with commander damage or anything that depends on that too could be. I don't know if do you have any decks that depend on commander damage to win?
Depending on commander damage specifically, I just built Timon and Rhoda, the new Azorius partner pair that came out with Crimson Vow Commander. I think that's the only one that actually cares. I guess Sigarda Heron's Grace has done it once this year. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, no, I don't really play a Voltron deck, only because I feel bad specifically hard targeting one person, which is what the nature of that deck requires. That
for sure. Yeah. It
so
can only
moved away.
Yeah, for sure. It can only kill people one at a time. That makes sense. So what about, would you consider Finn one of your highest win percentage commanders then?
Finn has a 25% win rate. I played 12 games. Or no, I'm sorry. I didn't win 4. I won 3. Yes. Okay. So correcting my note from before, I won 3, but they were all 3. They were 3-person pods. So I won 3 games out of the 12, and it has 25. It does not have my highest win rate. My highest win rate is Rionia Fire Dancer.
Oh, shoot. Okay. What's your win rate?
It's 73%.
Holy moly.
It's 8 wins out of 11 games.
Okay, that's a really big sample size too.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So that deck was moved way down because remember I did mention that deck previously on a stats episode had fast mana in it.
Yep.
And we took it out saying this can't continue. But the nature of that deck has gotten stronger because we were able to add. I added Bergie from Kaldheim, and I added Stormkiln Artist from Strixhaven, and a Dockside Extortionist, which the Dockside probably needs to come out now. Okay. It just is kind of enabling too much for this extra combat commander. And that deck was significantly higher earlier this year, still too high at this time.
Nice. Mine is actually kind of weird. My highest win percentage deck is a CEDH deck that I don't have built anymore, and that's Rogrok, Son of Rogra, and Jessica Thrice Reborn.
Oh.
With 2 wins and 1 loss, so giving me a 67% win rate. I think all of those, maybe they didn't all happen in the same day. I think 2 of them happened. I think my win and loss happened in one day, and I won another day randomly with it. But if I were to play 100 more CEDH games with it, it would lose a lot more often than it wins. So I think that one's just a little bit of an anomaly. So I kind of went to my second one here, which is a lot more relevant, is Livia, Oathsworn Sentinel, and Ludovic Necroalchemist, my partner decks in Bant that depends on blinking creatures or flickering creatures. It has a 50% win rate with 4 wins and 4 losses. It is a very consistent deck. It has a lot of interaction. It does make games go long, but it's very controlling, I admit. But yeah, it's probably honestly one of the better decks that I own to play in higher power. So yeah, those are my highest my 2 highest win percentage decks. You know me, I can never just pick one. I have to always
then I'll do my second, which was Alnath Locus of Rage, which was 60%, 10 games, and I won 6 of them.
Nice. I lost to that very recently. It seems.
You did. We ended the year, and I got another win with an Omnath, going right into the new year. So
that's right.
It is a consistent landfall deck. So 2 high. Now let's talk about our commanders that we played at least 3 games with that had the lowest win percentages. I have 3 of them all tied at 0% win. They've never won. And Tibor and Lumia, I played 3 games with. They never won. It was a Spellslinger deck in blue-red. Kangi Skywarden, I've played 3 games with. It also did not win.
Okay.
And then Sethron Herloon General, which is my Minotaur deck, I've played 7 games with and have not won.
Nice.
So those are my lowest win percentages. We're trying, obviously to exclude commanders we only played with maybe once or twice. But I thought 3 games at least to try to hit this category.
Yeah. No. I think I beat you here because I have 6 commanders without a single win here.
Oh.
Having played at least 3 games as well. If we count more than that, I mean, I got a lot more 0 wins, as we talked about. Sometimes we just get one and done. Some brand new decks, in fact. So my Cody Vociferous Codex.
Brash Taunter.
Secret Brash Taunter has never won a game in the 6 games that I've played with it this year. Jessica Thrice Reborn and Falthus Shadowcat Familiar with Obosh Companion is 0-3 for this year. My Samut Voice of Dissent art theme of people yelling and screaming is 0-3 for this year. My Sfella Ice Shaper deck, which is no longer together, is 0-7 for this year. My Tetsuko Umezawa Fugitive Mono Blue 1 power or less creatures 1 power or 1 toughness creatures are unblockable, is 0-3 this year. And my Zurgo Helm Smasher General Grievous theme deck is 0-5 for the year. So those are my 6 commanders with 0 wins.
So do you think, though, that at least 2 of those that I heard, Tetsuko Umezawa and Jessica Felthus, do you think that those are getting targeted and they're getting no wins because they're coming out the gate strong? Because I think some of yours have that, and I think some just may not have taken off, like Sfella. I played against your Sfella deck a few times, maybe actually each of those times, because I think we were still streaming when you had your Sfella deck. And it didn't get any wins just because it felt like it just didn't take off each time, or something got there first. Do you think that those 2 decks are because you were getting targeted with Tetsuko and Jessica Felthus?
I will say Jessica Falthus, I definitely get targeted because I kill everyone else's creatures. And people like to keep their creatures out. So that one I get targeted. That one is a strong deck. Feels like arch enemy. Which I'm fine with. I don't feel bad getting targeted first with that deck or anything. But the Sfella deck is one that just never, like you said, it just never took off. You can only get 1 or 2 permanents out on the field at a time. You couldn't really ever combo or anything. But the Tetsuko, it's just too easy to kill, I think. Because I'll swing like 10 1-power creatures at somebody and they have blockers, but it's like, with Tetsuko, it's unblockable. But all you have to do is remove Tetsuko, and then all the other ones you can just block and kill them. So board wiping is really easy against it, and it's just hard to rebuild back up. It wasn't particularly built with a budget in mind, but it doesn't have super expensive cards in it either. And it's very focused on the Tetsuko commander. Doesn't run a counterspell, doesn't run a Cyclonic Rift or anything like that. So, I mean, it could definitely just be better, a better mono blue deck, but I don't think that one in particular gets targeted too often, though. I do think actually the bigger ones to look at are the 1-win commanders, the ones that I've played like 10 games with and only won once. Those ones actually tend to be the ones that get targeted a lot more. My Kaidel Chosen of Krufix and Ardent Intrepid Archaeologist Curses deck only has 1 win, 14.3% win rate, and was eliminated first in all games except for 1. My Osgear the Reconstructor deck, which only has 1 win at a 16.7% win rate, was eliminated first in all games except for 2, and one of those games everyone was eliminated at the same time. So I think looking at the one win commanders might be a little bit more of looking at an arch enemy type of thing than the 0-win commanders, obviously with Jessica and Falthus as an exception to that rule.
Okay, interesting. And I like that you said that. I'm going to jump in real quick here because this is not the 1-win commanders for me are ones that fell kind of outside of the criteria of what we were evaluating today. But just to note, my 3 commanders, I guess one of them made it in, which was Selvala Explorer Returned with 12 games and 1 win. But some commanders that were played 9 times and had a single win for me was, I guess, Noyandar Royal Shaper. So I played it 9 times and I got 1 win and 8 losses. I don't know if I, specifically came in 4th here, but I do know that people like to remove it because it destroys and bounces everything. So I certainly understand that going into the games as well. And I have started saying, hey, I'd rather play this with a high power or like a more high power group as opposed to mid, even though I think it's mid because of the nature of what the deck's doing, which is just destroying creatures or putting all non-land permanents back into players' hands.
Right.
No one wants to play against that constantly. So I've played it a lot less this year than I did the previous year, I believe.
It's a very interesting notion. I'm just gonna tie the line and say, so people think that playing the color blue automatically increases the power level of your deck.
100%. And if you look at the salt scores based on EDH rec, there's so many blue cards that just get salt. And it's like, these cards are not horrible, but I get it. Blue raises your salt score, as we learned when the salt score had come out and just blue. Islands have a higher salt score than the other basic lands.
It's true. It absolutely is.
It definitely affects it. Now, how many total unique commanders did you play this past year?
So, counting unique partner combinations as well, I have 31 unique commanders and partner combinations that I played this year. However, 7 of them I have only played once.
Okay. I have a combination. So I also have a combination of legendaries, partners. I don't have any companions, but we included that here too. I played a total of 50 different decks, but for mine, I also included a Commander Cube that I got to play this summer.
Nice.
And I included my Commander Legends drafts.
Okay.
I also counted those Commander Legend draft commanders as decks that I played against. So there are a few decks in here that I may have only played against once, and it's because somebody drafted it when we played Commander Legends. But I did count those. I know you were not counting those in your spreadsheet, correct?
That's correct. In fact, I was looking at some of the messages you were sending in Discord earlier, and one of the commanders that you mentioned in that, I thought, I bet Commander Legends draft has something to do with that one being so high.
I actually don't. When we get to that section, no, I have played against 5 fully built of the deck you're talking about.
Okay.
But yeah, I played 50 different decks. And I guess I also a Commander Cube that I played with to qualify, because I'm going to be doing a long thread on this year's stats. I did have a deck where the cube had a house rule that any monocolor legendary creature had partner. Ooh. So they had the 2 color partners already in the cube, but I played an Akiri Lineslinger and Liliana Heretical Healer Mardu deck. Ooh. So that was kind of cool. But only the monocolor legendaries had partner, so that it made it easier to play 3 colors. I thought that was really cool. And the decks some of the decks were crazy. So now we want to talk about the top 10 commanders that we played against. So this is the number of times that we've seen the commander just appear, and whether or not we think that it actually correlates with the top commanders that we've seen on EDH Rec. So the top 10 commanders that we played against, and again, we had another qualifier that we needed to play against them at least 3 times. I did not have that issue later in the year now, but I played against the number 1 commander I played against this year was Zaxara the Exemplary, which is the Sultai Hydra deck. I played against it 12 times this year. What was the highest commander you had?
I think it's pretty funny that the highest commander I had is Golos Tireless Pilgrim, still here at the end of 2021, beginning of 2022. I had 7 games against Golos, but I do know at least one of those games was actually after the Golos banning, with a good Rule 0 conversation about it. I think it was a mono white Golos deck or something like that. So
fun. Yeah, that's a lot of fun.
But after that, I mean, my decks look a lot like all of the decks that you own.
Do they now?
Averna, Dina, Gerard, Niambi, Sigarda, Joda, Sethron. Yeah, those are all making the top for top commanders that I've played against this year.
Oh, look at that. I'm glad I make up so much of your list. Finishing out my list, I have Atrax of Praetor's Voice. I played against 11 times. Marin of Clan El Toth 11 times. Thrasios and Timna Partners 11 times. Goreclaw, Terra of Kalsisma 10 times.
Okay.
And then I had Gavi Nestwarden 9 times. Kess Dissident Mage 9 times. And then the last 3 were each played against 8 times, which is Umori the Collector, Cody Vociferous Codex, and Morathon the Boundless.
Boom.
So you made it on to the last 4. I don't know how many times you played your Kess deck, if at all, this year, but I definitely played against some Kess decks on streams.
You've played against mine. That is for sure.
I have. So, and then Cody and Morathon is a very popular commander. Cody, I played against yours, and I've played against some people on stream as well. So nice to see some creeping in here. But again, looking at some of the top, even the top 15 commanders, Atrax is up here, Marin's up here. Kess Dissident Mage is not too terribly far from, the top commanders. No. Maybe it makes the top 50, but a lot of these are representative of things I was expecting to see. Zaxara is up here in rank 22. So
yeah, number 7 on my list is actually Essica, the new 5-color everything good commander that's going to replace Golos. So, Golos is the most played. Essica only 3 less games than that. So Essica's going to move right on up here and into 2022 for sure.
Yeah. So now the next stat is something that I track and not something that you track.
Correct.
Which is how many games we played based on the month. So I track the date of my games. I know you're going to start tracking the date of your games.
Correct.
But the most games that I played this year was in May. I played 42 games in May. I do not remember playing 42 games in May. But looking back at my notes, I was on some CEDH streams, and sometimes you can knock out 4 or 5 games in a single stream.
That makes sense.
And I think I did 3 streams in May. So I completely understand why my numbers were so high. And then my lowest month was September. I played 14 games in September.
Okay. I can imagine my early months in the year, there was a lot more Magic for me than in the later months. I know the past few months have been very scarce for me, other than when I was on a stream here or there for playing Magic. So my notes here say I got the cold weather blues and haven't played a lot of Magic in the past few months. So most of my stuff is front end weighed for my statistics, and hopefully in 2022 we'll even it out a little bit more throughout the whole year.
Yeah, we'll be streaming throughout the year now, so we know we'll get at least 4 games a month,
right?
Just from streams, or potentially more. Who knows? And then the next stat actually is also one that I track and that you don't track, which is the people that we play against. To see who we played with the most. Just something that I personally was curious. I wanted to see if I played with people in our Discord more, if I played with you more, if I played with my significant other more. I wasn't sure where this was going to land, and so not surprisingly, you were the person I played with the most at 70 games.
Yeah, that's I just did a quick calculation on my side. Since I don't track this, I think I can safely say that no one else has played more than 49% of my games of the year, Andy. So you are definitely the person I played with the most.
Okay, perfect. And then in our Discord, we have Parker and Andy. I played with them the next amounts, 63 and then 61 games. I really appreciate everybody in our Discord that has been getting in games with us. We have a great time playing, just on Spell Table. It's a lot of fun, and it's easy. You don't have to go to your LGS, and Spell Table has really changed the amount of games that I played, because in person, I would be lucky to say that I hit 40 games in physical person this year. Maybe 40. Because we were out of town. We did a couple of games there. I was in MTG Vegas. I went to Las Vegas this year. I played a couple of games there. Maybe I don't undersell it. Maybe I'll say 50, but the majority of my games are just all online. So thank you everybody who has played games with me this year. This is just a fun stat to have so I can see. And I also wanted to mention, people may think that you and I play all the time. I think there was a period of almost 2 months where you had crazy stuff going on at work. I was implementing something new at work, a major project. And then we hadn't played for almost 2 months together.
Right.
We played with other people separately, but we had not played for 2 months. So that was nice. Towards the end of the year, we made it a point to play some more games together.
Mm-hmm. No, I still ended the year with 50% of my games with you in it though, Andy.
So your games were fantastic.
I'm just saying that perspective has a lot to do with it. You had 300 games and I had 140. That's all. But
Boyle would like to see some other people in games as well occasionally. Yeah,
I'm just saying all my stats are about your decks, Andy. That's all. No, I'm kidding. But speaking of which, why don't we talk about the top 10 commanders overall that want just our own commanders, but commanders in general that won, including our opponent's decks, and the number of times that they won, and see if we see any trends there.
Okay.
So how about you, Andy? What's the top commander you saw win in all of your games?
Okay, so top commander that won out of every game, like just this is based on percentage for me, is Emoti, Celebrant of Bounty. So Emoti is a Simic commander from Commander Legends that gives bigger spells. I believe it's mana value 6 or greater, Cascade. And I played against an Emoti deck 5 times this year, and just in any pod. And the Emoti decks won 4 out of the 5 times for an 80% win rate.
Wow. That's very strong.
Really, really strong. And it's such an unassuming commander because it's like, I'm going to Farseek, and then I'm going to Cultivate, and then I'm going to Kadama's Reach, and then I'm Crater Hoofing on turn 5, and I have 19 creatures off of an Avenger of Zendikar and an Apex Devastator also somehow. It's not surprising every time I see it coming and I go, no, next turn's not going to be the turn. And it's always the turn.
Yeah. Always
it's very
assume
good.
It's the turn.
Always assume it's the turn. So Emoti has, I think, made my list of, I have to remove this commander. Otherwise, I'm going to lose to that commander. Yep. That was my number one. What was your number one deck that won the most times?
So having only played 140 games, a lot
against
of
me.
140 and half of them being against Andy. A lot of these are my own commanders that have won the most, just because, I see a lot of unique commanders that I play against. So my Livio and Ludovic with 4 wins, Nadir and Sidar Kondo with 3 wins, Aluna with 3 wins, and Arden Kodama with 3 wins are my top in all my decks. But right after that, we have Adina Soul Steeper with 3 wins. So that one I don't own, so that for sure isn't mine. Morophon with 3 wins. I know one of those wins was not actually mine, so bravo to the third Morophon win that I was part of. And then a very, very crowded 2-win section where I just listed some of the ones that weren't mine that were kind of unique. Ramos Dragon Engine, Orvar the Allform, which was probably Andy both times, Rogrok and Arden, Krenko Bob Moss, Goreclaw, Terror of Kalsisma,
Krenko Bob
Moss. Flippity Flappity 1-800 Zatalpa beat me down 2 games in a row. Sir Gwyn, Hero of Ashvale, Tassiger, Sekuar Deathkeeper is a cool deck that's actually in our Discord that I've lost to a few times. Greven Praetor Captain, and Maelstrom Wanderer. So just some
of those
ones.
made my list as well. So next up for me after Emoti is Lord Windgrace. I do not have a Lord Windgrace deck, so this one is not mine. I played against Lord Windgrace 4 times and I lost against it 3 times. So 75% of the time Lord Windgrace wins. Rionia Fire Dancer did make it on here. Of the 15 games that Rionia was in, not all mine, Rionia won 11 of the 15 times.
Wow.
For 73% of the time, I feel like now the thing to remember here is a lot of these Rionia wins were mine. I think only maybe 3 of them weren't, 2 of them weren't. But it goes to show the other Rionia deck is also winning games, which I like to see. It's a cool mono red commander.
The Rionia, I remember the one other Rionia deck that I lost to was a budget Rionia deck from Andy's Upkey, for sure.
Yes, from the Scrap Trawlers. Yeah. And I think also Andy Bentley from Commander's Forge has a Rionia deck, and I've lost to that one. And then actually the next 10 are all tied for 4th place for me, where they all were in a game. I played against these 3 times or maybe even with it. I don't actually, none of these are mine. One of them is, and they all have a 66.67% win rate. So there's Heliod Suncrowned, which I believe was mine. Lathril, Blade of the Elves, not my deck. The new elf from, I think that was Kaldheim Commander.
Yep.
Rune of the Hidden Realm, Orvar the All Form, that was mine, and I think also one of them was Kelzum Gaming, one of our judges, and our graphic designer. And then Arden Intrepid Archaeologist, and Kedis Emberclaw Familiar, Omnath Locus of the Royal, Emrakul the Promised End, Prava of the Steel Legion, and Tevizat Duma Fools.
Nice.
Verazal the Split Current, and then also Sekuar Deathkeeper.
Yeah.
They all tied for 2 wins, appearing in 3 games for 66.67% win rate. So these were the top commanders that won in the games that I, was playing here.
I hope everyone is going over to Scryfall right now to look up Sekuar, since we both mentioned him, and he's a very not played commander. You need to go find him. He's super cool.
Yes, and the thing to remember, I did mine based on the actual commander's win percentage, not just a specific count of the number of times here that we played against. I changed it up from earlier in the year when we did this, so next year. And if you're listening and you want us to track something, or you wanted, maybe us to add a little bit more info, let us know. You can tweet at us or email us. The next one here is the top 10 commanders that came in 4th place, period. So this is just across the board and how many times, and whether or not we think that it had anything to do with maybe that commander. So I'll start. So for 4th place, I saw Niambi Esteemed Speaker 9 times, Queen Marchesa 4 times, Yarok the Desecrated 4 times, Sethron Herloon General 4 times, Caneus and Tiro 3, Kamena Tyrant of Araska 3 times. Actually, the rest of these are all 3 times. Amareth the Lustrous, Yawgmoth Ram Physician, Winota Joiner of Forces, and Kess Dissident Mage were all my top 4th placers.
Okay. Do you think any of them are 4th place for a particular reason?
Yeah, I think Niambi, Queen Marchesa, Yarok, Caneus and Tiro, Yawgmoth, Winota, and Kess are very strong, and we're probably targeted for being good in those particular games.
That's fair.
I'm not sure Sethron is, came in 4th a lot for playing it 7 times, and it never really did a lot except for one of them. I think Caneus and Tiro being a group hug deck, people, I know I tweeted earlier this year, I said always kill the group hug player first, and I stick by that.
Agreed.
I think Winota and Yawgmoth and Kess are all just really good commanders, and I think they're probably a victim of some preconceived notions of what the deck is, even if they might not have built it said way.
I like that you actually had Queen Marchesa on your list, because that's the one common one that I have on my list. Of Queen Marchesa. It's at the bottom of my list, but it's on my list. Queen Marchesa 3 times, coming in 4th. I almost think this has something to do with the introduction of the Monarch and constantly being hit and people taking the Monarch from you. Just that incremental damage that maybe you take over time in the beginning of a game. But my top 4 are all my decks. For coming in 4th. I have Osgir the Reconstructed, which came in 4th 4 times, which I talked about before, having 16.7% win rate. One of the times it was not in 4th place was because everyone got eliminated at the same time. One time I got eliminated first, actually very recently, by your Tovolar deck early as the first one. And then the other time I played the deck, I had won. So this one, it revolves around the concept of mill and putting out as many copies of Mesmeric Orb as possible using Osgir's ability. And mill is a concept that most Magic players are adverse to. They don't like it, and they attack me for it, and I die first. My second one is Kaidel and Arden. This was my Curses deck that I don't have together anymore. People don't like being cursed with stuff. This also had a really bad downside of being a Karuga companion, so I couldn't actually get blockers down until turn 3 or 4. So I ended up taking a lot of damage and cursing people, and it made people mad, and then I would die first a lot from that again. Arden and Kodama has a very similar issue, which is my next one for top 4th place appearances, because it tries to combo off. If people have seen it before, they know that they need to eliminate me before I can have an upkeep with a lot of mana. So that one tends to win a game and then lose first a lot of times in a row. Nadir and Sidar Kondo is my tokens deck. This one I'm actually pretty surprised at. I'm surprised my tokens deck got eliminated first so many times. It might present too lethal of a board state too early, and then people might want to just focus me. I didn't dive too deep into that particular deck, but it is one that is kind of an outlier to me compared to these other ones.
Nice. Yeah, I like seeing this. I think it definitely puts some context to the commander, especially the ones that I saw here. I'm not surprised seeing them hit fourth, and I can assume I can go back and look at some of my notes because I do take free-form text game notes at the end, but I can assume they were probably causing an issue or maybe they were presenting as the problem, so they got taken out.
Yep.
Now, how many unique commanders, commander pairs, or companions did you play against this year? So this is just a count in total. How many different commander decks did you play against?
It's a mind-boggling number, Andy. I didn't even know this. Well, I did know this. There's probably more partner pairings in existence than the number I've played this year. But still, 254 unique commanders or commander pairings I have played against this year. That's crazy.
So almost double the number of games you played. That's a lot of variety, though.
Oh, yeah. Huge variety. Very, very good job, Wizards of the Coast, over the past 25 years making cards. Good job. How about you, Andy?
I played against 422 different decks.
That's almost all of them. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, no. But I did also make sure that I was tracking, that I made sure that if they were a partner pair, I listed them the same way. So like it would be Malcolm and Vial Smasher. So if I played against someone else's Malcolm and Vial Smasher deck, I listed it the same way because I did notice that halfway through the year, I was writing like Vial Smasher and Malcolm. Well, they're the same partner pair, but in Excel, they appear as different. Yeah. So I had to do quite a bit of cleanup. And I think this year I'm going to migrate my spreadsheet to an actual database so that I can select them and that I don't have to manually do a lot of these things.
Oh, that's smart. What program are you going to use?
That's a great question that I will answer when I figure it out.
If you know a good answer to that question, we're interested in it. You should email us.
Yes. Okay. The next thing is how many times we went first, second, third, or fourth. So I went first 81 times. I went second 70 times, third 77 times, and fourth 79 times.
So that's pretty. I mean, it's pretty.
It's pretty evenly spread.
So statistics exist for a reason, guys, and this is proof right here. So I went first 35 times. I went second 41 times. I went third 30 times, and I went fourth 37 times. My numbers look a little bit skewed towards second. And I don't know if you did this and if you specifically looked at your games where you had like 3 people in it or something, but I only track who goes first. And then I determined who went second, third, and fourth based on who went first. And so I had to actually track my 3-player games and 5-player games a little bit differently. I did not go fifth in the 2 5-player games that I played.
Okay. And I also have 3 unknowns because I track whether or not I go first, second, third, or fourth. And there were 3 games that I logged many weeks later and I could not remember. So I do have a blank. Okay. So for those of you that are adding up to make my 310, I did want to mention that I do have 3 unknowns that, you know, but it's still pretty even. 81, 70, 77, 79. Yeah, I would say that, there was no going second, you know, 120 of the games.
Right.
You know, nothing crazy.
Did you notice anything based on your win percentages or anything based on what place you went in or what turn order?
What I looked at was specifically if the person won the game, I wanted to know if they went first. So I was just curious. And 26% of the time, the commander that won the game also went first.
Okay.
So that was the one stat that I pulled from this.
Okay. So I only pulled my personal data for this to look at my personal win percentages and actually eliminated first percentages based on which turn order I went. And when I went first, I won 10 times and was eliminated 10 times, eliminated first 10 times. So fourth place 10 times. So 28.6%. So when I go first, I'm pretty close to that 25% win ratio.
Oh, nice.
And pretty close to being eliminated first 25% of the time, which is fine, it probably is going first probably does help me establish a good board state, become threatening, and then I either take the game or get eliminated first. That makes total sense. Now, going second, I have 7 wins and eliminated first 9 times, 17.1% win rate, 22% times eliminated first. So I feel like going second is not a great position to be in, according to my numbers. And you have to remember, these win percentages, you actually have to compare them to my win percentage number, not the 25%. So it's actually based on the 19.58% win percentage. So actually, going back to first turn, it's almost 10% higher than my normal win percentage. So first turn even has even more weight than that. But second turn, having a lower win percentage than my lowest or than my average win percentage. Third place, I won 3 games for a 10% win percentage and was eliminated 9 times. So 30% of the time I played in third place, I was eliminated first.
I wonder if the specific player order matters. Not the player order, just turn order, but who is sitting physically in front of you turn order.
Across from first place.
I'm just wondering if, and maybe this is something we do next year, is determine whether or not you sitting directly before me or me sitting directly before you actually changes anything. Oh, because sometimes it does.
Yeah.
If I know you're going next, I will change my play versus you going right before me, because I might be able to affect something you do versus, I don't know. Yeah. It might, depending on where you physically sit down at the table, also can affect it. But I don't know how you would track that or provide any stats on that. But it could.
You would have to track you'd have to track seating positions. And then you could even track you know what?
Well, I do track seating positions. I do, because I track each player name and I track the turn order. So I know who goes first and I know who's sitting in the physical pod. I just wonder if it matters. I'd have to check into it, but I didn't look into it seeing if I beat you, if I'm sitting directly, before you or directly after you at all.
Right. Or if there's one space between.
Yeah.
That would be
interesting stuff. So what do we learn about our decks from this year? I'll start with you.
You'll start with me.
You'll start with you.
Oh, okay.
We will all start listening to you.
So something I learned about my decks, a lot of my, when I talked about my 0-win decks, a lot of them are decks based on either like an art theme or a Star Wars theme. Maybe the deck was built for a specific stream, or it's a niche deck like my Brash Taunter. And my win percentage definitely reflects that, being, 5% lower than the ideal 25% win ratio. But I think those particular decks that I built aren't necessarily built to win, but they're necessarily to just built to do their thing. I think if I take that into account, my win percentage probably is a lot closer to 25%. And I'd like to break down my data a little bit further from this in order to get that. And I think there's more things I need to track in order to do that. I know that there's at least a few things, at least one thing that I track that you don't. I know there's going to be a lot more things that we need to track going into the new year. But yeah, I think the biggest thing to break out of this is I have decks that aren't necessarily built to win that are going to be bringing my win percentage down quite a bit. And I have decks that are definitely becoming arch enemy the turn that they come out and start doing things. Those are the two big takeaways I took from this. How about you?
I have a few things here. The one is that I misplay a good amount of times, and I will say this is a difficult game. I continuously read cards wrong. You evaluate them wrong. You think they do something, they don't do what you wanted them to do, or you realize you've been playing it wrong for a while. So I think maybe marking on a field whether or not I made a misplay, and maybe it was caught later, that could have potentially changed the outcome of the game, is something just nice to have, so I can see how often it might potentially be coming up. But I've learned that I've done that quite a bit this year. I also think that politics plays a big role. While my win percentage is higher, I'm usually able to buy myself another turn just out of my wonderful charm, and I think that I think I do it so often that it feels too natural now to be like, no, just give me one more turn, it's fine. Like, or I can help you. I can really help you. Mm-hmm. And I do the thing that I said I was going to do. I'll remove that creature, but I might, so I feel like I need to maybe cool it on the politics. And then I tend to power up the level of my decks too quickly before knowing whether or not they need to be. So I tinker with decks before I've even played them like 4 times.
Gotcha.
You play it once and I change 4 cards. And I was like, I probably should have played it 5 or 6 times before I changed anything. But when you can only play so many games, you only have so much time, it's really hard and you want to add new cards.
Yeah.
So there's that. So the last thing here is we want to talk about things that we're going to start tracking this year. So let's start with you. I know there's a few things I'm tracking that you weren't, like the date and the players who are playing. Is there anything new that you want to start tracking this year?
So one of the things that I do track that I don't have a good way of looking at mathematically, so I want a better way of tracking it, is the way people are eliminated in the game. So we talked about it a little bit before we started streaming. I track specifically how people are eliminated from the game. There's so much variety that it's really, really difficult to actually break it down into categories. Like combat damage and commander damage and infect are very easy to track. Maybe alternate win conditions like Thassa's Oracle, Laboratory Maniac, and Jace Architect. Maybe you could categorize those together as Labman type win effects. But once you get past that, it's like, do I call this combat damage, or do I call this they put a crater hoof behemoth down and everything got +30 and that's why we died. So it gets a little bit difficult to categorize that. So I want to find a way to categorize that to track it mathematically.
Okay. Anything else?
I think, like you said, I want to start tracking the dates, the people who I am playing with, so that maybe I can see it's someone's specific Golos deck that is the mono white deck that I played with or something like that.
Sure.
Maybe even take note of those specific types of decks. I don't know if that's something that you do every time you play against my Cody deck. Do you put Cody parenthesis it's actually Brash Taunter, or is it counted the same as all other Cody decks?
It's counted the same as all others, how I'm tracking it.
Right. So I don't know if maybe that's something to do. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine. The few things that I wanted to add this year were, like I said, misplays. Maybe just make it a yes/no column. Was there something that I was identified later in the game? It doesn't take anything away from it. I mean, It's just whether or not I made it, and I think it'd be myself personally,
sure,
not just like was a misplay made in general. I'd like to have a column about Rule Zero discussions being accurate. This is also based on personal opinion, so it's very difficult to track something that is different for everyone, because someone may think that it was a great turn 0 or Rule 0, and someone might have thought, I don't think we were all clear. Maybe we didn't play the exact same game, right? I also have a freeform text field that tracks for game notes. So like you said, the way that somebody won the game, I usually type it in there, but it's difficult to say, did they win through commander damage, or did they win through just regular damage, combat damage? And it was combat damage because somebody comboed to, a 2-card combo to grab, like Defense of the Heart, to go grab a Crater Hoof. Did something happen? So something like that. And then I also think I want to mark down whether or not I was playing the game on stream, because I play games differently when I'm streaming. I'm chatting with everybody that's in chat for that stream. I am likely going to make more misplays. And I think what I do on streams is I make different plays than I would make if I was trying to just win. I think what I try to do is go for a wow factor when I'm on a stream. And I think it might be nice to see how many how many games were actually played on stream. So I think I want to say yes or no for streams. And that's what I think I want to add this year. I'm happy with what I track. It's just hard because you have to make sure you do it. And it's also all manual. So, we're pulling numbers from an Excel spreadsheet we've been populating for a year. I mean, I mentioned earlier, I already had something where I had to correct myself on this stream saying, oops, wait, it was 3. It wasn't this. It was, so also I know that I may not have tracked all of my games. Somebody said that they had tracked that they played with me a certain number of times, and I did not have that same number. So there's potential that I'm also missing some information here. So again, Grain of salt.
Sometimes when we get together and play Magic, there may or may not be alcoholic beverages involved, which could not only increase the number of misplays that you do, but could also decrease the number of games that you record. It just happens.
100%. 100%. And with that, that is the end of our episode this week, and we want to thank you all for listening. If you want to find us on Twitter, you can find me at Andy Flory.
And you can find me on Twitter at Wormcoil Engine. Of course, we want to give a special shout out to Ryan Nichols, our producer and editor. Thank you so much for everything you do. And Chris Wolf, who handles all of our graphic design. Thank you so much for everything that you do. And to all of those of you who have been listening to us for the past year, and all of those of you who are brand new listeners today, thank you. And we will talk to you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.